All right, so let's take a look at dictionaries. This will be kind of our third video in this series of refresher Swift courses, and let's make us a dictionary. We'll call it game data, even though I would probably never set up my game data like this. I'd set it up close to this. I just wouldn't do it by hard coding it into the Swift file like this. But let's explain a little bit about what dictionaries are first. So essentially, we've got a key type to look up the data that's over here, and this key type is always going to be a string, and the data, at least for our hypothetical purposes over here, is just going to be an any type. Okay, it could be a string too. It could be, you could put in here a very specific value that is always going to be, again, it's better to kind of look at this as an any. And the reason I say I wouldn't set up my game data like this is because I would use a property list file, and I've taught many courses on this. Probably every one of my gaming ones we start by talking about property lists. But essentially this is the same thing, where this is the key over here, and it even shows you, look, that's the key, and then you've got your value, right, and you've got your type. Okay, so blue. And keys have to be unique, so let's just go and put key 2 over here. This could be number type, right? Let's put key 3 over here. This could be a Boolean type, and now my dictionary basically contains all keys that are strings, just like over here, and then all values of different types. So again, this would be considered just any type of value over here. And you can, property lists get really kind of detailed, because you could have arrays, inside of here, right? And a lot of times what I'll do is I set up level data in the property list file. So kind of one of my first entries in here might be something like another dictionary for level 1. Okay, so just to give you an idea of how I would generally set up the game data. But in this case, what we're going to do here is, let's just say our first key is going to be tanks, okay, and then we'd put a colon in here for the number of tanks that we wanted to maybe spawn in the game, right? Or maybe that's the max number. Next value, let's just say tank type, and notice that these are comma separated after we do the the key and the value, okay, and then we've got a colon between each of these. So tank type, I don't know, let's make this a string type. How about rolling? That seems like a tank type. And then how about explode on impact, and again colon, and then let's make this a bool variable. Okay, so what we could do over here is, well, one of the things we could do is we could first test to make sure there actually is some data, right? Game data.count, that should show you the number of items that are in there, or basically the number of entries, I should say. So this would be considered, one entry, right? Another entry, another one. So we've got 3 over there. And then if we wanted to iterate through that, and actually I should probably just leave that up so you guys can see it. So if we wanted to iterate through this, we could say for key value in game data, and just like an array, this is going to iterate through all the for as many items that we have in there. So it's going to do what's inside of here 3 times. And if you found that for whatever reason you weren't using one of these things, you can always, and it would tell you this, you can just put a underscore over there. But of course, we're going to need to know both what the key and the value is inside of here. So first thing we would test is we'd say if key equals tanks, right? Then we're going to do something inside of here. And these could all be else if statements after this. So else if the key equals tank type. And the reason you do an else if statement is just so that if you got a hit for tanks as the first, item in here, then you don't have to go and look for tank type or explode on image, And but one kind of caveat of these dictionaries is that they are unordered lists. So whereas an array, that's an ordered list when we were dealing with arrays, when we iterated through them, the first item in there was always going to be looked at first, second, and so on. But with this, we just don't know, when it iterates through here first time, it might be, the key might be explode on image. You just don't know. Okay. So, yeah, that's something important to know. And we'll say if, let, and so if we're going to test this, let's put in here some value. And, for our tanks, this is going to be an integer, right? And what we'd want to test is if the value passes as an integer, then we're going to do whatever's inside of here. So, we can say tanks to spawn will be, and then we'll just use some value for that. All right. And what we should see is that, what did I forget over here? There we go. Yep, sure enough, tanks to spawn will be 20. And then you're going to want to do that same exact test for, everything else you've got. So string tank type is and then for our last one over here, just want to make sure that that's a bool value. Tank will explode on impact. And let's give that a sec to run, print out. Still thinking about it. Did I mess it up? Oh. Well, first off, explode on impact. And then phew. Darn thing froze up on me there. All right, so you see, obviously, it is printing out all these statements now. And all right, let's skip out of that for a second. I think you guys kind of get that. But let's suppose you wanted to add to the game data over time. So you could say game data. And then to make a new key, again, it's got to be that string type. So you're going to say new key. And then equals whatever you want that to be, like 51, right? And you would see, actually, if we reverse these around, that the game data .count should be updated. So it says over here 4, right? That's correct. And yeah, so let's see, game data. And of course, you can always go through in here and just kind of play around with, if you put like a just dot after this, you can start to see your options to, you could remove stuff, remove value for key, right? So if you want to just set it and then immediately get rid of it, which doesn't make any sense, but that is an option. You could clear out the entire dictionary, so remove all. That would get rid of everything. Obviously, if we do that there, all of our print statements are now gone down here because there's nothing in here to toy around with. And yeah, I guess I suppose that's kind of it as far as these dictionaries go. If you're kind of stuck thinking, wait, why would you never do this for your game data? Well, when you think about it, I mean, it makes a lot more sense in this case. Let's say var tanks int. This is going to equal 20. So if I was going to hard code in values in my code and not use a property list, this is the approach I would take, where I'm making variables, tank type. This is going to be a string. This is going to equal rolling. Because, this is obviously going to be a lot easier, for me to identify variables or use them in the game code versus always going and saying game data and then putting in here whatever I remembered the key to be, right? Because, later on after you've set up this variable, it's way easier than to just start typing. And, of course, it's going to fill in here tanks, tank type, whatever it is, versus, if every time I was trying to pull data out, I had to go in here and say game data and then identify it by the key. I've stopped typing right now. It's not filling in, the compiler's not filling in for me what that, like it did for the variables over here. So it's not going to try to take a guess as to what key I'm talking about. So anyway, yeah, so what I would end up doing is I would put data in the property list, Then I would iterate through that data, and then I would make a variable like this. Let's say I had this at 0. Let's say I just didn't have any value for that. And then I would say tanks is going to equal some value, right? So that way all my data is kept in the property list file. I go and I fetch it at runtime, and maybe it changes on a per level basis. And then I just kind of reuse all the same code to populate, the variables with whatever the data is per that that particular level. So again, you can go down here, tank type equals some value. So that's the way I would do it, just nice and clean like that. Okay, 10 minutes. We've talked enough. See you guys in the next video.